name is Aastha, and welcome to the Peer Podcast series for the Public Mental Health Newsletter. As part of the series, we will speak with individuals and talk with them about how they work on their mental health and fitness. Today, we have with us Kelvin, who's a musician and founder at the Djembe Singapore Club. Hi, Kelvin. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Would you please share a bit about what you do?
Hi, my name is Kelvin. I'm based in Singapore. I'm a musician that specializes in an instrument called Djembe, which is a traditional African drum from West Africa. So I run Djembe Singapore Club, where I teach Djembe classes every week. I also use Djembe to do performance, team building events as well. And also using Djembe as a tool to facilitate mental well-being. It could be a session where, I'm trying to get participants to be more mindful of what they're doing and their environment. That's pretty much what I do in Singapore. And sometimes I would conduct workshops and training overseas as well for people who want to learn Djembe and to experience mindfulness through Djembe.
Djembe is very unique. How did you discover it?
Really focused on the Djembe. I was first a percussionist. I play percussion in a symphonic band when I was in school days. And then I continued to pursue that even when I left school. And then I came upon a Djembe. I didn't know how to play. But long story short, much later when I grew up, I went to US and pursued a full-time study in world percussion. And in the Faculty of World Percussion, there's a class on traditional West African drumming on Djembe. And that's the first time I got exposed to traditional Djembe drumming. But I'm already a percussionist, so the learning of traditional rhythms wasn't that foreign or that new to me. But what actually really attracted me with Djembe is that, the flavor of traditional rhythms. It's one thing playing a rhythm on a Djembe with an analytical mind, and it's another experience and feeling to hear it as it is, like to taste the flavor of it without thinking too much about it. And that's where the feeling comes in. And thereafter, my experience with learning traditional Djembe rhythms, I experienced a situation where I have to, force myself to forget what I already know so that I can be more effective in understanding, or rather I should say, internalizing the flavor of what the traditional rhythms are. And of course, after I graduated, at first I went to US to study, in the hope to become a full-time musician, which I was already gigging freelance before that, and I want to just become better, as a gigging musician. But Djembe really reached out deep into me, and so long story short, later on I decided that I just want to do Djembe and nothing else, and hence I started my studio, teaching Djembe classes, forming Djembe group, perform, and right to now.
Thank you for sharing that. Your affinity towards Djembe is certainly quite special. Would you like to share more about it? Like what drew you towards Djembe, and what is it about it that keeps you going? Is it the way it makes you feel, or is it the energy, or is it something else?
Right, until now, I think that Djembe is still revealing new things to me. But one thing for sure is the things that has been revealing to me all this time is not like a one-time enlightenment. It just becomes deeper and deeper every time. And the total sum of all this realization always points to the right direction. So what is this right direction? First of all, when I started drumming, I just feel very happy. I think that's very similar with a lot of people who drum. And then when I hear the Djembe and I also understand how traditional rhythms are traditional Djembe rhythms are being played, and then I start to resonate with the sound and the flavor of traditional Djembe rhythms. Then it got deeper to a state where I feel like I'm experiencing something good and I want to share this with another person. And also when I perform in Djembe, when I express, I could literally feel myself expressing myself through the instrument. So when you're learning an instrument in the beginning, it's still a very technical journey. that it stimulates your mind, it challenges you, the handling, and then the speed and all that. But it got to a stage where you actually feel you can speak with your djembe. That's why I say I can sort of express myself with the djembe. So that's again deeper. At the point of time, I read a book called Free Play, Improvisation in Art and Life. So in it talks about a Sanskrit word that's called lila. Lila in the context of Sanskrit means play, but in the Sanskrit context is divine play. It actually refers to inner child play. So when a child plays, he or she doesn't think or plan or analyze. It comes naturally from his or her own brilliance, and that's the creativity that we talk about. That all of us have it. And so, but when we grew up as adults, lots of environment, society expectation, rules, laws, kind of shape our thinking towards how we should behave or think or express, in a confined environment or context. But and so because of all that, our inner child kind of goes into the back seat, and we kind of lost touch with the creativity or brilliance of us. So for me, playing djembe allows me to get in touch with my inner child all the time. And so this is another enlightenment as I go deeper into that. Again, right until now, so what I've always been realizing is, so this whole journey of getting in touch with your inner child, it's a very simple way to say it, getting in touch with your inner child. But to actually do it, it's a whole lifetime journey, And so I'm exploring how to do it myself. I've been exploring how to do it myself. And now I'm exploring how to do it for other people so that they are able to access that. And how do I guide my subjects, my students, my audience into getting in touch with their inner child as well? So that's why djembe, slowly and surely and still continue to be, plays a very important or is a very important tool in my life, which is to like a vehicle, like a tool to get to access the inner child for me and also for people that comes to learn from me. So if I'm able to do it myself, I think I see it as a responsibility or an obligation to do it for other people as well. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Being able to be so mindful while playing music, being able to resonate so deeply with it, all sounds very incredible. But most of us in our daily lives, because of our stressors, we tend to lose that mindful approach. What's your approach towards mental fitness, and how do you teach your students to become mindful while they're playing djembe?
So I like to always see that when we are in that default position where our mind is clear, or rather you have that instant access to your higher self, that is your default self. Okay, default. That means we all have that. We don't have to train to become that. We all have that by default from point zero. Okay. So what happened is the everyday thoughts, the distractions, worries, struggles in life, small worries, big worries, okay, are like arrows that's shooting, is coming against our that default self. Okay. So, and then if you don't have a shield, then that arrows get to us, which is what happens to us, like people actually doing something, but their mind is worrying about other things. Okay, very standard situation for everybody. So that's when the arrow gets to us. So my chain of thought is I would like to help people set up their shield. That means however, in whatever direction the arrows, let's call it the arrow distraction, okay, is coming, okay, they are not affected. So the next question, how do we build out the shield? So in my way is, of course, through drumming, right? So, in the conversation of meditation, we say that meditation, or most people say that, I'm not a meditation specialist or master, but I think it's safe to assume that when we say meditation, it's basically about putting your mind focus on one thing, okay, and not trying to focus on a lot of things at the same time, okay, and just think about that one thing. So when we say your mind think about nothing is also a thing, right? So the way I do it to have the shield for my students is to meditate on the rhythm that they are playing, okay? So let's assume a very standard profile of human being, okay, with no drumming background. So just some simple beats to get the right and left hand moving, and a rhythm that I think it's not too challenging, but just nice enough for them to engage their hands and their mind and their motor skills to start playing. So at the moment of drumming, their mind is focusing on that action, which brings them to a state of flow, right? This state of flow, is a term coined by a writer and a psychologist by the name of Mihaly. I'm sure some people read about it before. So he coined the term flow, where anybody is in the state of concentrate on an action, and everything, all your consciousness, or focus is on that one action. And because you're in that one action, you're not distracted by other things. You are in a state of flow. So the state of what qualifies a state of flow is that activity cannot be too simple. It cannot be too difficult as well. It has to be just stimulated, just a challenge enough that it can stimulate your mind to be focused on it. So that is it's similar to meditation, where you just focus on that one thing. Yeah. So then, if through drumming, my student can constantly, find themselves in a situation where they are focusing on one thing in their one time, it actually train up that mind muscle or consciousness muscle, if is the right term to put it, to know how to will themselves to concentrate on one thing. Okay, so drumming is kind of like a moisturizer, I'll call it moisturizer for the consciousness, for them to rely on to concentrate on one thing. So if they are able to do that in a consistent manner, it becomes a habit. So when they go back to their everyday life, of course, they can't be bringing Djembe with them all around, but they will try to visualize or imagine back the feeling or the situation when they were drumming. It's really just about, focusing on one thing. Okay, and this will help them to focus on their breath, using the same exercise, same mental exercise to focus on their breath, the rhythm of their breath, or focus on one thing they're looking at. It's to focus on one thing is basically building up the shield situation. When your mind is focused on one thing, then you are not easily distracted by all the thoughts that's coming. For me, that's step one. Step two is all the arrows that's coming in, all the distraction thoughts that's coming in. Actually, you can't really control that, to be honest, right? It's there all the time. So step two is actually knowing how to embrace or observe this distraction, but not get affected by this distraction. Okay. Now, when I bring this comparison back to me as a performer, so when I perform, when I play solo improvisation, when I tell my story, so there could be a lot of thoughts. Maybe my teacher is in the audience looking. Maybe, they are audience paying money to come and watch me. So I have to put up performance. I cannot screw up. I cannot fail. So all these are the distractions coming in. So they are there, the fears, the expectation. But it's all about how to embrace them, and or rather how to know how to see them and just park them aside at the mind and not get affected. Now that will be, of course, a higher level for anyone to master that. But again, my class drumming, sometimes they will learn the basic stuff, and then I'll encourage them to play solo later on. They'll be afraid of me judging them, of course. They'll be afraid of their friends, in the community. So, but these are practices in a safe environment, in a safe and fun environment. And of course, in the hope that one day develop that mental muscle, hence coming back to my context, develop that strong shield. That is, you can have your arrows there. You can have all your distraction, worrying about your bills, your children, society expectation, all that coming in, but you won't be affected. Yeah. So that's kind of summarize what I do with Djembe in terms of mental well-being.
That's great. I think the approach you mentioned, especially taking the middle level of complexity, it works for me as well. Like if it's too hard, I become too bogged down by the details. And if it's too easy, I get distracted. In addition, I also think being able to find that connection, the connection you have with Djembe, is also very important to be able to be mindful while playing music or even while working, like finding the right work or the work that you connect with. How would you like to characterize the connection you have with Djembe? Do you connect through rhythms?
First of all, I will rephrase the word connection with the word resonance. Yeah. So for me, resonance would be like all my senses as one being is lighten up. It's like a light bulb, and then you're resonating, right? So in terms of African rhythms, it's not so much of which rhythm will resonate me. It's more of the sound. Yeah. So it can be a very simple beginner rhythms with not much complex polyrhythmic patterns, and it's just groovy, the sound coming together. That can resonate me. Yeah. And from another area of it, it could be very challenging rhythms that will get my mind to think and kind of analyze. But I know if I analyze too much, I will lose the resonance because I get into analytical thinking. So yeah, it could be complex rhythm as well. So I would say it's but for that complex rhythm to make me have experience of resonance, it has to be delivered through the drum, which is sound. So that's why I would say it comes back to the sound. Yeah. Having said talking about that, I will kind of bring back to the memory of when I first hear proper traditional djembe with Junun playing together. Because before that, when I was in US, my first traditional djembe drumming classes. Because before that, I was already playing djembe, but not in the traditional way, just in a I assume myself way, with modern percussion knowledge and all that. But when I actually for the first time hear how Junun and djembe come together, that ensemble sound, that resonance of Tunun, low pitch Tunun and high pitch djembe tone start coming together, and then the rhythmic arrangement, and the form, the groove that feels contagious. So that feeling for me is, I would say at the moment, is very addictive. I love it. So why I love it? Because I think it reached out to somewhere deep inside me. Yeah, it kind of like awakened me. Yeah. So if I have to again put it in a more general perspective, I think for some people, other type of sounds resonate them. It could piano sounds, ensemble string sounds, sound of the harp. I'm not sure if sounds kind of goes with the personality of people, but for me it's the drumming sound, and in this case djembe and dunum. Yeah, so for me it would be the sound. Yeah.
Great. I think that's what we should all look for, that kind of resonance and that kind of awakening feeling, not just while pursuing music, but also for the work we do and the various other activities that we pursue. Thank you so much for your time today and sharing your approach towards mindfulness. Is there any last message you would like to leave our audience with?
Thank you for having me here and letting me share about my take on mental wellness, and in this case with my profession, djembe. All right, and if ever anyone of you interested with drumming, in this case djembe drumming, come to Djembe Singapore Club. All right, and I'll be happy to have you in my classes.
Thank you, Kelvin, and thank you to all our listeners. Please join us back next week where we'll have a new guest to shed light on ways they work on their mental health and fitness.